Welcome to rSlash Am I the Devil, where OP is super duper sad that he got away with assaulting a woman with zero consequences. Our next Reddit post is from rSlash Relationship Advice. I'm a 38-year-old man, and I was disowned by my family for forcing myself on a woman during college. Then my dad died, and they want to reconnect. So I forced myself on my younger sister's friend during college. I was disowned by my family except for my dad. My dad died, and now my sisters want to reconnect all of us again. I'm the middle child and I have two sisters, Fiona and Mary. I was never close to Fiona, my older sister, due to her age difference, but me and Mary are only a year apart and she was my best friend. I'll be brutally honest and admit that when I was a freshman in college, I forced myself on Mary's friend. Under no situation am I trying to downplay it, and since that day, my mother and younger sister permanently disowned me from their lives. It was also close to a breaking point for my parents, as my mother forced my dad to disown me as well, but he couldn't. So I knew that I was the cause of them fighting during that time. I was kicked out of college, and I was supposed to be sent to prison for my crimes, but my father bailed me out. He did a lot for this country, giving up most of his life for it, so I was spared prison. My mother and Mary were furious and demanded that my dad just stop helping me. I felt even worse and just decided to disappear from life. It was a rough couple of years, but it was more than I deserved after what I did. At some point, my father knew where I was and randomly stopped by to see how I was doing. It was an emotionally charged moment, and I broke down to him. I wished I was dead, and I told him I have no right to be upset because I committed one of the worst crimes anyone could do. He helped pull me back onto my feet in secret over the next few years. I was able to graduate with my bachelor's at a cheap local school, and my dad was the only one to show up. Again, this was in secret because he didn't tell my family anything. Thinking about it makes me just want to break down and cry. I got a job making a modest $45,000 a year, which I still feel like is more than someone like me deserves. I was slowly putting my life back together, but to this day, I still feel like I don't deserve any of it. Rent, food, clothes, I was paying for it all on my own. My dad would stop by my place once a week if he could find time to watch football with just me. He would visit me a few days before my birthday to celebrate. He was worried that if he met me on my birthday, my mom might suspect something. More years pass. I meet a girl I really like, and I'm scared. On our second date, I tell her what I did to just be honest and to let her know that I'm not worth it and she can do better. She left the date, and I knew that it was over. I didn't expect her to come over the next day, but she did, and we talked through it. She's my wife now. My dad was the only witness to our court marriage from my side. I miss my father so much. He always told me that he was proud of who I became. He never lost hope in me. He was the only light in my life. As a boy, I wanted to be like him. If it wasn't for him, I know I'd be dead. I named my son after his call sign from his military days, which made him laugh. I think about him every day and make every choice in my life asking myself what my father would do. When my dad died, my wife encouraged me to go to his wake. I was scared, but I did it. My older sister hugged me tight, asking me how I've been and was generally nice. My younger sister didn't want to talk to me at first, but she eventually came up to me asking basic questions. My mother wanted me gone. She didn't even want to look at me. And she told me in a really angry tone that she knew my father wasted his time with me, but she never had the heart to tell him that she knew. I didn't know what to do at this point, so I just left to leave my family in peace. I only lost my dad, but to the three of them, my dad was much more than anything he was to me. It just didn't feel right staying there. Fast forward months later, and my older sister calls me asking how I'm doing and wants to catch up in person. She said that both of my sisters forgive me, which is something I didn't ask for. They want to meet my wife, my son, and they said they regret not trying to talk to me sooner. I'm a little more comfortable with them now, but nothing like how close we were as kids. I guess it's just a lot to ask for. I recently found out that my mom is struggling with loneliness and loss ever since my dad died, and both my sisters asked me to take her in a few days a month so she can meet my son and wife. My sister said they'll convince my mom and for me to not worry about that part. They said that they would act more like dad and that they want to do the right thing to the family. My wife is excited to meet my mom and already has a room ready for her. I'm scared out of my mind. I even told my sisters that if my mom comes, I would be totally comfortable if she would rather I not be in the house, then she could just play with her grandson on her own. I don't know why I'm posting this anymore. Maybe I just wanted to vent online, asking for a sign if I deserve this little happiness. I know my dad would be happy knowing that my mom was playing with my son. Maybe he's in heaven helping too. I'm just so damn scared. Do I leave my mother alone? Do I say hi? How do I introduce her to my wife and son? Am I allowed to have my sins forgiven? Because my mom has every right to disown me after what I did. Yo, you guys, this entire post, start to finish, was just one long pity party. Oh, woe is me. My life is ruined. I feel so sad. I feel so guilty. What have I done? But he doesn't even spare a single sentence for the woman whose life he ruined. He didn't even apologize anywhere in the post for what he did to her. It seems like he's upset that he ruined his own life, not that he ruined her life. I don't know, man. Maybe he just forgot she existed. Our next Reddit post comes from rSlash I have 2 children, a 26-year-old man and a 25-year-old woman who live at home, whom I'm very proud of. Both of my children have lots of friends and great jobs, and they're polite and considerate. My friends always remark at how well I've raised my children. My son is athletic and kind, and my daughter is intelligent and hardworking. However, over the past few years, I've noticed my daughter growing more distant with me and my husband. She's polite and we exchange pleasantries, but I feel like she's very apathetic. 3 months ago, she and my son got into an argument. She said she overheard that my son was making stuff up about her and telling lies to his girlfriend about my daughter. They had a confrontation and ended up not speaking to each other. I asked my daughter why she was treating her brother like that, and she exploded at me. She accused me of always favoring my son ever since they were young, and that she was always the scapegoat. She showed us a journal from when she was a teenager, earmarked with pages where she had written events that I don't remember, such as, supposedly, my son had been beating her up until she was 18. Apparently, every time she told me, I would blame her for provoking him. My husband and I would supposedly yell at her for not helping my son with his homework, despite him not having asked her for help. How we yelled at her for not being as good as my son in tennis, despite her having better grades. How she placed second in a national competition, and we said that she was just lucky. How we promised our son a dog if he got straight A's, whereas she always maintained straight A's and didn't get a dog. She really wanted a dog when she was younger. She said that we yelled at her often for making her brother look bad, and called her selfish and evil without ever listening to her side of the story. Many entries were about how she hated life and wanted to die. All of this was a surprise to me. I do recall vague memories of her telling me she was unhappy, but I thought that it was just part of adolescence. She then continued to express how my husband and I still favor my son to this day. For example, my husband called her cheap when she stated that she was sleeping over at her boyfriend's, and she blew up at him, stating that she couldn't believe that she was being called cheap when she's never heard him say that about my son. And she was offended that she works so hard at her 2 jobs while volunteering and maintaining 90% in her PhD program. But still, her only worth was tied to her body. Granted, we do let my son get away with more than my daughter, such as sleeping over at his girlfriend's place. But I don't want my daughter being taken advantage of. She also mentioned that she was upset that I would buy a house for my son, but it's because he'll eventually need his own place, whereas she will have a place with her future husband. Essentially, she brought up a lot of things that I don't even remember saying, and I feel like she's misinterpreted. We were poor when we immigrated here, and our culture favors boys. My husband and I were under a lot of stress and worked long hours to provide for them, so I was short-tempered when they were young. I suggested we should go to therapy as a family. She scoffed and said that she suggested that years ago, but I laughed at the idea at the time. But I don't remember doing that. My heart is broken. I love her and my son so much, and I'm regretful for how I may have treated her in the past. I now see why she feels that she was a scapegoat. Since that argument 3 months ago, I've apologized, and now I never yell at her for anything. I do so much for her, and yet she can't seem to forgive me for the things that happened so long ago that I didn't mean to do. Is there anything I can do to repair this relationship? Wow, must be nice to be so forgetful. Just be a terrible person, forget about it, and then just everything's fine, right? If you don't remember it, then that means it must not have happened, right? Our next Reddit post comes from r/AmITheButthole. Am I the butthole for making my sons take all their stuff to their mothers? I'm a 45-year-old dad of 3. My 2 boys are 19 and 18, and my daughter is 17. The 2 boys are out of high school. The older one graduated, and the younger one will graduate this June. The older one goes to college, but is staying with his mother this summer. We're divorced. The younger one, as I said, just graduated. Right after he graduated, probably a day or 2 later, I told him that now that he's 18 and out of school, he needs to decide if he's going to live with me or his mother. And he needs to decide and let me know by July 1st. For reference, my daughter lives with me one week and her daughter the next, and that's what my sons did when they were in high school as well. Well, July 1st came and went, and I didn't hear from my son. So on July 2nd, I packed up all of his stuff and his brother's stuff in trash bags and boxes and set it in the front yard. Then I texted them and told them that they needed to come get their stuff. They asked why, and I said that if they chose their mother over me, then I don't want their stuff in my house. I even packed up my younger son's pet snake and told him to take it to his mom's house, which he said he couldn't do because they already have a dog and 2 cats. So anyway, I told them to come get their stuff or I'd throw it away. It took each of them 3 trips in their cars to haul all their stuff away because this stuff has been in my house for 12 years, so there's a lot. I also made sure the younger one took his snake. Well, after they took everything away, I got a call from their mother. She said she was livid, and she said that she doesn't have room to store all these things. I told her that they live there now, so it's her problem. She said that they already have things at her house because they've gone back and forth for 12 years, so there's no place for 2 houses worth of things. I, again, told her that they live there now, so the boys' stuff is her problem. She then said that I had no right to send another live animal to her house without asking. I told her it's my son's pet, so it needs to stay with him. She called me a butt and asked where she's supposed to keep all the stuff. I told her there's a shed and a garage, so she can store them there. She called me a butt again and said I have no right to dictate how she uses her storage space in her home. I told her it used to be my home too, so I do have that right. She then said that she loves the boys, so she'll help them figure out what to do with all their stuff. But that doesn't mean she agrees with what I did. I told her she doesn't have to agree. If the boys live with her, then so does their stuff. And that's it. She hung up. So, am I the butthole? Wow, I can't even fathom why OP is posting and he's acting like he doesn't know that he's the butthole because it sounds to me like he's intentionally trying to be a jerk. Well, in any event, 10 years from now, there's going to be a post on Reddit. Why won't my kids talk to me? I don't understand. Kids these days, so ungrateful. Whenever I read stories like this, I always have to wonder if OP also got kicked out of his home at 18. Our next Reddit post comes from r/AmITheButthole. Am I the butthole for asking my brother to not pay for my daughter's university tuition because it was a deliberate consequence of her choices? My daughter will be attending university this fall. However, after much discussion, she's chosen a school that we disagree with. Initially, I offered to pay her full tuition as long as she attended our local university and live at home. She convinced us to let her expand that search under the guise that she was applying only to Catholic schools. When she was accepted into Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., I was hesitant due to the 17-hour drive from Baton Rouge where we live. We were persuaded after a tour, and because she was offered merit-based and needs-based scholarships, which could cover nearly all of her tuition. Additionally, my brother and his spouse moved to Maryland near the DC area several months ago, and she would have family very nearby. Unbeknownst to myself and my husband at that time, she applied to other schools as well. She preferred to attend the University of Maryland. We told her that if she expected us to provide any financial support, then it would be to a Catholic university. We were also disappointed she would choose this school over Georgetown, which had been so kind to her. And we also never toured UMD. Knowing this, she still wanted to attend UMD. We told her that she's an adult and we can't control her, but she will learn that there are long-term consequences of adult choices, namely student loans. I since learned that she cried about this issue to my brother, who offered to pay for all of her tuition. He has no kids of his own, and he contributes nothing to the care of our elderly parents. I texted him and explicitly asked him not to do this, because my daughter needs to learn that she will not always be rescued. He not only told me that it's his money and he'll do whatever he damn well pleases with it, but he also told me that my lesson is an absolute joke. We got into a heated argument over this, and I told him that I'm concerned about his influence over my daughter, because he's been an atheist for decades, among other issues. And my daughter looks up to him immensely. College is already a difficult time for faith. He told me that I'm not helping that by alienating her. I tried to be civil and urged him to consider my plea, to which he replied that he doesn't need to consider it. There's now considerable tension between us and between my daughter and I. Am I wrong for wanting to help guide her into adulthood? Also, in the comments, it's revealed that OP's daughter wants to study aeronautical engineering, which OP calls a loser choice. So I don't think the whole religious angle is very relevant here. To me, this just reads as the classic story of controlling parents are angry that they can no longer control their newly adult child. The whole thing about the daughter has to learn consequences is so stupid because learning consequences is like, don't touch the hot stove because it'll burn your hand. This consequence is, do what I say or I'll punish you, which is not a consequence, that's just control. That was rSlash, and if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.